Hello students, welcome back to the video lecture of Writing for Academic and Professional Success. We are discussing the fifth unit of the book, Vocabulary and Grammar of Academic Writing. So let's resume from where we stopped in the last video. We were discussing some of the important points that you have to keep in mind while writing academic writing or while attempting academic writing. So the next point we have to discuss is completeness of sentences. A sentence is a group of words arranged properly to make a sense. It is the basic unit of a language, and it starts with a capital letter and ends with a full stop, period, exclamation, or a question mark. A sentence contains a subject and a verb. These are must for a sentence. A sentence should have a subject and a verb. A clause contains a subject and predicate, and it is the smallest grammatical unit that can express a complete proposition. Okay, that can express a complete idea. So, sentence or a clause which has a subject and a predicate verb is the smallest grammatical unit that can convey, that can communicate or express a complete idea. An independent clause or a group of words that can stand alone as an independent thought is a complete sentence. An independent clause can be a simple sentence as well. We will talk about clause, independent clause, dependent clause, etc. in the next slide in detail. So whereas a dependent clause does not make complete sentence, so it cannot stand alone. A dependent clause is also called a subordinate clause. Okay. Next point is diversifying sentences, which means that we have to use different types of sentences. It will become monotonous if we use same kind of small sentences in academic essays. So in order to avoid this monotonous nature, we have to employ different types of sentences such as simple sentence, complex sentence, compound sentence, etc. So adding different types of sentences in different lengths will avoid monotony, will make writing more interesting and readable. You have to be careful while using too long sentences. So it's not advisable to use too long sentences or too short sentences. It is advisable to break it into two or three different small sentences. If we have to use a long sentence, it's better, it's advisable to break them into two or three small sentences, comparatively smaller sentences. So the things which we have to keep in mind while diversifying sentences are as discussed as below. So it is important to use different types of sentences in a text. There are different types of sentences such as simple sentence, complex sentence, compound complex sentence, etc. What is meant by simple sentence? Simple sentence is a sentence that contain only one independent clause. A clause is a formation of a language which has a subject and a verb, but it may not be a formation that contains a complete sense. So there are two types of clauses, dependent clause and independent clause. As we discussed in the previous slide, a dependent clause cannot stand alone. It has something more to add to get complete sense, whereas an independent clause or a main clause can stand alone. If we give a full stop at the end of a main clause or independent clause, it becomes a sentence. But a dependent clause or a subordinate clause cannot have a complete sense. Okay, so simple sentence is a sentence that has only one independent clause. So this is the smallest kind of sentence available. Then compound sentence is a sentence having two independent clauses or two simple sentences. So compound sentence is a combination of two simple sentences or two independent clauses. Next one is complex sentence. Complex sentence contains one independent clause and one or more dependent clause, which means that complex sentence contains one main clause and one or more subordinate clause connected to it. Then compound complex sentence. Compound complex sentence is a combination of compound sentence and complex sentence. Compound complex sentence means two or more independent clauses and one or more dependent clauses. Okay, two or more independent clauses make a sentence compound sentence, and adding into that we have to use one or more dependent clause. So two or more independent clause or main clause added to one or more dependent or subordinate clause. Such construction is known as compound complex sentences. So we have to employ all these kind of sentences in order to have diverse effect in our academic writing. So we mostly use simple sentence or compound sentence or complex sentence in our writing. Sometimes we have to use compound complex sentences as well. Next point is avoiding fragments. A fragment is an incomplete sentence or disconnected piece of a main clause. Okay, an incomplete piece is known as fragment. It usually happens when a subject or verb is absent in a sentence. You have to link the same to an adjoining sentence to complete it. Okay, in a construction, as we already said, to become it a complete, to get a complete sense out of a sentence, we have to use minimum of a subject and a verb. So if a construction lacks subject or maybe verb, it becomes a fragment, an incomplete construction. So in a conversation, fragments are necessary and acceptable in our daily conversation, informal conversations, but they are not acceptable in a they are not acceptable in academic writing or formal conversation. In informal conversation they are acceptable, but in a formal conversation or academic writing they are not acceptable. So example, let's see an example so it will become more easy for you. I am planning to buy a new phone. I'm planning to buy a new phone. That particular sentence gives us complete sense. The one I am using is dead now. That's a fragment. It actually cannot stand alone. The one I am using is dead now. What one are you talking about? Okay, if the first part I am planning to buy a new phone is not there, we won't get a complete sense from the second part. So the second part, the one I am using is dead now, is a fragment. So in order to avoid fragment, we have to combine these two pieces or sentences and make a better or perfect sentence. So we can revise it like this. I am planning to buy a new phone, comma, because the one I am using is dead now. Okay, I'm planning to buy a new phone because the one I am using is dead now. This is how we should avoid fragments. There are several other examples given in the main textbook, so if refer them, you will get more idea about how to avoid fragments. You can actually look in page number 84 and 85 of your textbook to get more idea about fragments. Next one is subject verb agreement. It's a very easy and basic idea about language. The most important aspect of a sentence is subject verb agreement. The basic rule is that they should agree in number. Subject and verb should agree in number. For example, if we are using a singular subject, we should have to use a singular verb in that sentence. If we are using a plural subject, we have to use a plural verb in the sentence. Okay, a singular subject takes a singular verb and a plural subject always takes a plural subject. There are two examples given in the slide. He is a singular subject, so we have to use plays, which is a singular verb in the sentence. So he plays football. When we use they, a plural, instead of he, the verb becomes play instead of plays. So they play football. Similarly, if we are using subject like we or you, the sentence will be like this: we play football or you play football. If you are using she, another singular subject, the sentence will be like this: she plays football. So a singular subject takes a singular verb and a plural subject always takes a plural subject. That's known as subject verb agreement. So while writing a simple sentence, it is easy to arrange the subject verb agreement, but it is difficult to handle with it while you are using compound sentence. Okay, it will become very clear when we write simple sentence, but when we write compound or compound complex sentence, it will become more confusing. So you have to be careful about it while attempting academic writing. Next one, consistent use of tense. We have to use the same tense in the same sentence or in same paragraph. Mixing tenses is not advisable. Okay, so always it is better to keep the tense consistent in your formal writing. Inconsistent use of tense is suggestive of poor writing skills. If we are using different types of tenses in the same paragraph or same sentence, the reader might understand that you don't have a better knowledge of English language. So shifting tenses is allowed if the time frame of your subject matter changes. Okay, you can use different tenses if you have to mention something that had happened earlier or some years back, you can use past tense. Otherwise, you have to use the same tense, and it has to be presented with a signal word or phrase indicating change of time frame. For a narrative type of writing, consistent use of past tense is appropriate. If you are writing a narrative essay, past tense is appropriate for that, while present tense is preferred when you are writing an analysis of some writers and their works. Okay, if you are doing a descriptive or analytical essay, present tense is advisable. But if you are using a narrative, if you are writing a narrative essay, past tense can be employed. Next one, the 12th point is parallelism. What is meant by parallelism? It's another important point. Parallelism, it is actually explained in the page number 88 of your textbook. Parallelism is the use of components in a sentence that are grammatically the same or similar in their construction, sound and meaning. Okay, similar nature constructions or sentences or phrases of similar nature can be used in order to make academic writing more interesting. It adds to the flow of the text. For example, Faiz loves cricket, football, and reading books. This is non-parallel because there is loves cricket, football, and reading books. Ing came there, and reading book is something else because cricket and football are part of sports. So we can actually make it more parallel by rephrasing or restructuring sentence like this. Faiz loves cricket, football, and volleyball. So it becomes similar set of things in the sentence. Whereas reading book is different from cricket and football. So this is how we should actually avoid parallelism. You will get some around 8 or 10 examples in the page number 88 for avoiding parallelism. No, for including parallelism. And then next one is avoiding wordiness. Wordiness means using unnecessary and more words in academic writing. So we should avoid this behavior. Wordiness is one of the most common mistakes in academic writing. In formal writing, wordiness refers to the imperfection caused by the use of more words than the meaning demands. Okay, using more words than needed. This particular behavior is known as wordiness. It actually makes the academic writing imperfect. Wordiness is one of the barriers of communication. To avoid wordiness, one should eliminate unnecessary words while writing or talking. Okay, unnecessary words should be avoided or eliminated. So we can actually see two examples here. One example, which one sentence which is wordy. It gives me immense pleasure in introducing our esteemed speaker. This is wordy. We can say it in a simple or less wordy format like this. I'm pleased to introduce our speaker. Both sentences gives the same meaning, but one is wordy, more wordy. And look at the second example. The coat that Anita wore for the party was blue in color. This is wordy. Instead of using this much words, we can say Anita wore a blue coat for the party. This is less wordy and more easy for the reader to understand. So these are the things we should actually keep in mind while attempting academic writing. So hope you understand and enjoy the points explained in the slides. So you need to refer the textbook while listening to the video lecture, and I have mentioned the page numbers in many occasions. You have to refer, or you have to look at the page number and understand the examples and all in order to have a better understanding of the area we discussed in the video. So we are done with vocabulary and grammar for academic writing, unit 5 of writing for academic and professional success, second semester common paper. Thank you.